What is globalization and how has the global economy shaped the United States? After centuries of technological progress and advances in international cooperation, the world is more connected than ever. But how much has the rise of trade and the modern global economy helped or hurt American business, workers, and consumers? Here is a basic guide to the economic side of this broad and much debated topic drawn from current research. Globalization is the word used to describe the growing interdependence of the world's economies, cultures, and population, brought about by cross-border trade in goods and services, technology, and flows of investment, people, and information. Countries have built economic partnership to facilitate these movements over many centuries, but the term gained popularity after the Cold War in the early 1990s as these cooperative arrangements shape modern everyday life. This guide uses the term more narrowly to refer to international trade and some of the investment flows among advanced economies, mostly focusing on the United States. The wide-ranging effects of globalization are complex and politically charged. As with major technological advances, globalization benefits society as a whole while harming certain groups. Understanding the relative costs and benefits can pave the way for alleviating problems while sustaining the wider payoffs. The history of globalization is driven by technology, transportation, and international cooperation. Since ancient times, humans have sought distant places to settle, produce, and exchange goods enabled by improvements in technology and transportation. But not until the 19th century did global integration take off, following centuries of European colonization and trade activity. That first wave of globalization was propelled by steamships, railroads, the telegraph, and other breakthroughs, and also by increasing economic cooperation among countries. The globalization trend eventually waned and crashed in the catastrophe of World War I, followed by post-war protectionism, the Great Depression, and World War II. After World War II in the mid-1940s, the United States led efforts to revive international trade and investment under negotiated ground rules, starting a second wave of globalization, which remains ongoing though buffeted by periodic downturns and mounting political scrutiny. Globalization in charts. First, trade has skyrocketed in the past century. Second, US trade grew to levels exceeding third of its GDP. World trade volume now surpasses half of world GDP. Direct investments coming into the United States and going abroad have grown. US import taxes dropped considerably post World War II. Major economies dropped tariff rates and kept them low. Canada and Mexico remain best customers of US exports, with China's market growing. United States has growing trade surplus in services and deficit in goods. FAQ. What has been the role of international financial flows? Separate from trade in goods and services, global financial integration is a much debated but important topic. Here is a quick summary. Many countries have large international financial flows or investments consisting of assets and liabilities. These include FDI securities, or which are bought and sold, and debts. They are generally held by or owed to firms, banks, and other financial institutions or governments. This chart shows how yearly U.S. transactions grew over time as the global economy and financial system became increasingly integrated, but dropped dramatically during the global financial crisis of 2008 to 2009. Total U.S. foreign assets in 2016 were $26 trillion, equal to 140% of U.S. GDP. Total U.S. liabilities to foreigners were $34 trillion in 2016, or 185% of GDP. This chart shows how FDI has grown steadily while the growth of portfolio holdings, foreign equity or foreign debt, and other assets, which are largely composed of bank loans, has been more volatile. Reserves are international assets held by the U.S. government. This chart shows the collapse of financial inflows to South Korea during two periods, the 1997 to 1998 Asian financial crisis and the global financial crisis of 2008 to 2009, especially in other liabilities like bank loans. Korea was hit in 2008 to 2009, even though the epicenter of the crisis was in the United States and Europe. I showed that you could not separate the idea of commerce from the idea of war and peace, and that wars were often largely caused by economic rivalry conducted unfairly. I embraced the philosophy that unhampered trade dovetailed with peace. High tariffs, great barriers, and unfair economic competition with war. If we could get a freer flow of trade, fair in the sense of lower discrimination and obstruction, so that one country would not be deadly jealous of another and the living standards of all countries might rise, thereby eliminating the economic dissatisfaction that breeds war, we might have a reasonable chance for lasting peace. Globalization as a tool for prosperity and peace. After World War II, the United States helped build a global economic order governed by mutually accepted rules and overseen by multilateral institutions. The idea was to create a better world with countries seeking to cooperate with one another to promote prosperity and peace. Free trade and the rule of law were mainstays of the system, helping to prevent most economic disputes from escalating into large conflict. The institutions established include IMF, International Monetary Fund, established 1944, 189 member countries, works to stabilize the system and help countries facing balance of payments and debt crisis. UN, United Nations, established 1945, 193 member countries, seeks to prevent conflicts with global security norms and assistance for humanitarian crises.
World Bank, established 1945, 189 member countries, founded to help reconstruct post-war Europe. It now provides loans and policy advice to developing countries. WTO, World Trade Organization, established 1948 as the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, replaced 1995 by the WTO 164 member countries, sets rules for international trade and educates trade disputes. Member countries agree to WTO rules but can also negotiate free trade agreements with each other. The United States has trade deals with 20 countries. NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, established 1949, 29 member countries, bulwark of Western Security Alliance.
Effects of globalization: more goods at lower prices. Globalization encourages each country to specialize in what it produces best using the less amount of resources, known as cooperative advantage. This concept makes production more efficient, promotes economic growth, and lowers prices of goods and services, making them more affordable, especially for lower income households. Scaled up business. Larger markets enable companies to reach more customers and get a higher return on the fixed cost of doing business, like building factories or conducting research. Technology firms have taken special advantage of their innovation this way.